Welcome to Alpha Kappa Psi's webinar titled Service in the Community, Sharing Your Skills to Make a Difference. My name is Mackenzie Lauka, and I serve AK Psi as the Associate Director of Education. I'll be your moderator. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few logistics regarding the audio and web-based features of today's program. In order to verify attendance, you should have linked to the GoToWebinar meeting room to the web link provided in your confirmation email. To access the PowerPoint handout, click the plus sign next to Handouts on your screen. You can click the name of the handout to download the file so you can follow along. This webinar will be advanced remotely, and at the end of the program, I'll explain how you can ask a question to our presenter. If you have a question throughout the program, feel free to type it into the question box on your screen or tweet it using the hashtag AKSciChat. Your questions will be asked at the end of the program in the order they're received. After the webinar has ended, a link to the recording will be emailed to you so you can review the webinar at a later point. Be sure to also check out our social media content. Portions of today's program will be tweeted using the hashtag AKSciChat. You may also find some valuable resources on the AKSci blog, Facebook page, Instagram feed, LinkedIn page, Twitter feed, and our YouTube channel, all of which can be accessed from the aksci.org homepage. Service is one of Alpha Kappa Psi's core values, and it provides the opportunity to not just give back, but actually make a difference in your community. It can, however, often fall to the wayside as more of an obligation rather than having a true desire to serve. Reflecting on her own experiences, a recent graduate of the Beta Pi chapter at the University of Miami will discuss how her chapter developed relationships and made a difference by sharing their skills with members of the community through an ongoing service program. In addition to covering these topics, we'll leave time for your questions and comments on the subject matter. For our program today, we do have the one presenter who's going to provide guidance and support while also provoking thoughts and awareness, so you walk away from today's program with new insight on the topic. At this point, I'd like to introduce our presenter. Candace is passionate about community engagement and her experiences giving back through Girl Scouts of America and service days in the Butler Center for Service and Leadership. She is championed for positive transition in her involvement as an orientation leader and remains committed to positively impacting the university community as a commuter senator in the legislative branch of student government. She has excelled in all of these responsibilities. Other involvements include being an orientation fellow, Category 5 marketing chair, Distraction Magazine deputy business manager, and National Gandhi Day of Service site leader and recruitment and retention chair. She was also executive vice president of Alpha Kappa Psi fraternity. After graduating, Candace is now pursuing her graduate studies in higher education at the UNC Greensboro. Although, no doubt, in addition to her professional duties, she will fill her days, nights, and spare moments with more outreach and support to help others. Now, to get started with the presentation, I'll hand it off to Candace.
So, hello everyone. First, we're going to talk about the importance of service. So, when you think about AK Psi, I think the first thing when you think of service that comes to your mind are our core values. We all know them: brotherhood, knowledge, integrity, unity, and of course, service. It's important because it brings us all together in a positive manner. Sorry, stop for a moment. In a positive manner. It allows a well-needed break from our work, professional, business lives that we're always doing, and gives personal touch to a person's character. Service, very similar to internships, allow people to understand the world from a more hands-on perspective. So every day we are constantly learning how to better ourselves and the people within our chapter. So there's really no reason that we should have to depend on. And the importance of service in AK Psi is that there's really no reason we should have to depend on others to create our service opportunities. I know that universities have service days, there's other organizations that ask you to come out, do beach cleanups and all of these things, but our chapters are filled with entrepreneurs, innovators, and, dare I say, principled business leaders. So, for me personally, growing up as a Girl Scout and then following an undergrad, being a member of a Greek letter service organization, I have a passion for service, and I truly wanted to bring that passion to my chapter and share it with the members. and our community, and show our community that service can be important to us and our community is important to the chapter. So now we're going to go to what we did. And first we volunteered with a place called Miami Rescue Mission, and I'm just going to discuss our journey to service and how we got there. So I thought, taking some ideas, what better way to give back than what we were already learning and sharing every day in our fraternity, which is our professional skills. So back it up a little bit. I was currently the community service director. This is about my second or third semester as a brother, and I said, I want to do something different. So I attended a campus community fair, which not all campuses have, but it was a community service or civic engagement week, and our community service and leadership department was having this community fair, and I found Miami Rescue Mission. After talking with them about my intentions and my idea to bring professionalism to service in our chapter and what we do, they connected me with a specific group of theirs to work with. And it's a mission for them. It's a mission for men, so it houses men, and it's for them to integrate back into society to become productive members. And so trying to bring these 2 points together, just professional skills and these men who need them that don't really get interaction from other people besides the program that they're currently in at their mission or shelter that they are in. They don't get any outside contact telling them what's really happening in the world. And so to start this, to continue this journey that we're on, we sat down and created a lesson plan, and our first lesson plan was networking and Microsoft. Real simple. I didn't really know what to expect. I just kind of talked to someone over the phone, said, what should we do? And I said, we're going to bring our own computers because they told us we couldn't use their computers there. And then one brother mentioned his background in the beginning, discussed how he really started from the bottom. He was from a low SES, did not have much, and how he got into college and where he was now and why he was so successful. And then we ended up breaking into groups, showed them how to use Microsoft, and then after that we had brothers go back every week and do different lesson plans, and then each week we decided to ask them what they learned next. And so after talking with them, we could see how this relationship is extremely beneficial for not only them, but also us. And they were excited for us to be there, and our chapter was excited to be doing this. And it gave them a way to be interested in service because, a beach cleanup or going to somewhere, it actually pertained to what we were doing. We are a business fraternity, and we were giving our professional skills to other people. And so our entire chapter was really ready to serve in the way that they could. So the next kind of task that is difficult for many people is getting everyone involved, because service is not the core value that everyone pays attention to. Of course, we have brotherhood and unity and knowledge, and everyone wants to do networking events. But as the director of service, I had this great passion, and I knew that it would really benefit the chapter. The trick was, how do I get all my brotherhood on board? My entire chapter to say, this is a great idea, and I want to be a part of it. So the suggestion and what I did, I started by talking to my president and getting my entire executive board to get excited for this. And it was more beneficial because at the time, our executive board was a lead by example board. So they believed that we had to set certain requirements for the executive board. And then once the executive board hit those requirements, it showed the brotherhood, that's how we want you to act. And this is how we want you to portray yourself. So if the executive board got involved, the brotherhood would know this is the example we're setting, and we'd like you to at least reach us here. And so after that, I decided my next stop would be the pledge class. And this is probably Another important place, and the executive board are leading by example, but the pledge class, they are just full of excitement. They really want to be involved. They want to get to know brothers. They want to bond in different events. They don't only want to be in brotherhood events. They don't only want to see you outside of school. They want to see you outside of chapter, outside of interviews, and so they're trying to figure out how they can get these pledge points, how they can get all of their requirements done. So I pitched it to the pledge class, and of course I had a lot of people sign up. And then after that, that is when I then went to my chapter and said, the e-board's on board, the pledge class is excited about it. Okay, guys, we're ready to go. So to do in all of these circumstances, I would pass around a sheet, and we could really only take about 12 to 15 people, 15 people max really, because we were working with a small group of men, and this small group of men, we couldn't take 20, 25 people if we only had 10 to 13 men. And so so before brothers were expected to go out and serve, we kind of got together and created this lesson plan, as I spoke before. And so even though I had said, this is what I kind of want to do, I sat down and said, what do you guys want to do? This is what I have planned. What else do you guys have? Because this is about taking your talents and being able to apply them. So beforehand, I had not even thought of letting a brother speak on behalf of the entire chapter to this group. But he said, well, I think that I have a really great story, and I think that it'll really resonate with these men. And because of that, I said, great idea. I think it's great. Some other people had said, I think that we should extend what I had originally put was resume building and bringing your laptops and showing them how to build a resume to let's show them just different skills on Microsoft, and let's do some presentations and PowerPoints, and we don't have to limit it just to Word and building a resume. And so we added that as a group to the lesson plan. And then after we went and served, so that helped us before to come together, everyone getting involved, and then we came together and served, but afterwards we would either in the car on the way back, or maybe if we stopped for dinner on the way back, discuss, reflect, say what we liked, what we didn't like, what we really got out of it. Some of us delved more deeper. A lot of the brothers had never had an experience like this before, dealing with men in this situation. So it was a very eye-opening moment. You realized, I'm not alone, and this was not my, even though it may have been your first time, it may have also been someone else's first time being in a situation where you got so close with someone of a different background than you. And then after that, so we came back, and then you kind of want this to continue, and you realize, hey, how am I going to keep this going? How am I going to market this? So instead of just saying, I'm going to pass around a sheet of paper, and I'm going to get the e-board to say, sign up for our community service event, we had the brothers that previously went there the week before. So the brothers who went the first week, we had 2 or 3 of them stand up in the chapter. All I said was, I'm passing around a paper for community service. Some brothers are going to come talk to you. And they stood up and said why this was such a moving or impactful experience to them, how they really enjoyed what was happening. And that spoke more to the brothers than it did if an executive board member or a chair member is telling you, you have to require these points, you have to do these hours, please sign up, please do this. It was brothers encouraging brothers to do service together. And they talked about it in their free time. It wasn't just a one-time thing for them. And so we were able to spread our success as our brotherhood enjoyed it. We went to regional meetings, and we discussed at PBLI and gave other chapters the opportunity to reach out and connect with us and develop their own relationships. So some of the South Florida chapters were able to develop a relationship with the mission that we were currently serving at, while at PBLI, other chapters that weren't in Florida were able to understand that this wasn't as hard as it may seem to create your own community service event. So all of these pieces really helped to bring our chapter together. So as we prepared these lesson plans, went to teach these men, performing service, it also helped strengthen our brotherhood between those who chose to serve, and we all gained something from giving back to our community. So next we're going to talk about the service experience. So what does it mean? I guess we've already talked about the importance, but what does it mean to serve? So what are you experiencing? What are they experiencing? And why do we do this? So as a Girl Scout and a member of a service fraternity, I was always doing service anyways for my community, and AK Psi for me gave another outlet for me to do service with. It kind of changed it up. I was always doing things like picking up trash, doing beach cleanups, mentoring teams, different things in those ways. So for me personally, being on the organizer side, I gained organizational skills, informational skills, so creating those lesson plans, how to bring groups together, so organizing my brothers, trying to teach them how to do to execute those lesson plans, but also bringing together a group of people that were not from a like background as me, and being able to have students teach them skills, men who were from the ranging age of maybe their early 20s to late 60s. So being able to bring those two groups together and have one learn from the other is a valuable skill that I personally was able to get out of this service. I enjoyed giving my brothers this opportunity to make a difference and serve using their skills and abilities, and to be able to see that they can make a difference in whatever way they try. I was glad that our participants in the Miami Rescue Mission were getting attention that they'd never had. So a lot of times you're going in and you're making food for them, you're donating, and there's really no sit down of what do you need, what do you want, especially from college students, people who they may or may not look up to, and people who aren't directly, it isn't their job to do so. It wasn't our job to come in and do this. That wasn't what we were getting paid to do. So they were able to have the attention that was never given to them before. And I also really learned that it was not always about these professional skills. It was about what we were teaching them. Myself and everyone gained a great deal of people skills. It was a different experience altogether. So we came into contact with people from different upbringings, experiences in life, and were able to build rapport with them and understand their stories. And so you were able to see, well, in translating this, if you wanted to say in an interview or in the business world, your upbringing is different than mine, and that's okay, and you're still accomplishing something. And having my life is not the only way to live. It's important to learn that people's backstories and what motivates them. And so it was, I think, a very different experience for most college students, because most college students are not meeting men who swam over here from the South Americans in different Americas and islands. We are not meeting people who just got out of jail. We are not meeting people every day in class who are veterans. We are not meeting people every day who may have been disowned from their family or disconnected for maybe 20 plus years. And I think that it was just a humbling experience for everyone, and bringing those characteristics and skills to yourself, that creates a better wealth of knowledge for how you understand people in the working world. Like I said when I first began, this helps you just like an internship. It's just a different type of hands-on experience. So when we went in, there was a dress code, an expectation of professionalism, and we taught them professional skills. But it was more about treating them the way that they wanted to be treated, and how that changed their outlook on life. We weren't treating them like homeless men or criminals. It was a change of scenery for us. I mean, we weren't staying on campus, we weren't being brought special needs children, we weren't just tutoring in places that made us feel comfortable. We were in the heart of, in Miami, it is called the historical Overtown area, which is an extreme low SES community. And so this was not something familiar for most of our students. We were able to take our talents on the move, travel to the neighborhoods that we'd never experienced, and the administrators always told us that it was highly appreciated. And I know many of the brothers, like I said, were humbled after having this experience. We even did a clothing drive. We collected suit pieces. We also passed around a donation link on all of our Facebook pages that AK Psi wonderfully has, had people donate. And then with that donation money, we were then able to go and buy about 80 or so pieces of articles of clothing and outfits, ties, shirts, pants, and the men at the mission were just always glad to learn anything from the tiniest of skills. Like Microsoft, they had Microsoft 97. So the tiniest thing about changing font or learning that a presentation in PowerPoint exists to networking skills, it was all extremely appreciated. So my brothers, along with myself, understood that from this experience, everyone deserved a second chance. As these men really wanted to learn and turn their lives around, during our lessons, we saw true passion and hope. So we gained a sense of thankfulness for our lives, but also realizing there is a need to always give back to your community. Obviously, they want you, and what you're getting out of them is almost parallel to what they're getting out of you. It's not a completely pointless situation. So after we experience all of this service, you're wondering, how do you keep developing the relationship? So in order to keep this relationship going, and I will say this is a bumpy road. I mean, we do have a lot of turnovers, especially in your undergraduate career. You're only there for a short amount of time. You can't keep having the same position over and over again. But I created a guide to pass on to the next community service director. And so it was mostly a folder, plain folder that had a lot of different points and information, said when to reach out, which numbers to call, and all the information we had used the previous years, such as lesson plans and things like that. And so the best thing about this position was that anyone taking on the responsibility in the executive board, so our hierarchy for Beta Pi was that the executive vice president, or EVP, was over risk manager and community service. So the best choice is for the executive vice president to choose someone who has passion for what they're doing. I think for me personally, I really showed when they put out the chair applications that I was really excited and I wasn't doing this just to put it on my resume. I was doing this because I loved giving back. But like all, so even though that's the first step, and you can have as many passionate people as you want, the issue with creating guides in a way is that they're not always followed, as I said before. And so if you don't find someone that is as passionate as you can get, you're not going to have someone that can continuously use this guide. So for our chapter, because we do have backs and forths, for the next couple of semesters, and as I stated before, service is not the core value that everyone pays the most attention to. So in the next 3 years, it wasn't the most worked on program, this Miami Rescue Mission community service. And so the relationship can fall in and out. Also, if you try this with your own chapter, you will realize that these organizations, it's not that they're not organized, they don't really have the funding to function fully like for-profit institutions. So I feel like on both sides, it was overwhelming for the executive board to focus on too many things. And so if you don't have a passionate person in charge of a community service and the executive board, it falls on the executive board member to focus on this and then community service, it sometimes falls to the wayside and becomes a little less important. There's some difficulties that you may come across when creating a community service program such as this one. Is really communication organization. So on their side, it was really hard to set up dates. You really had to sit down and personally plan out dates every single time and email them back and be ready, because they, like I said, don't have as much funding as you would think, and they're not always as organized as you would want them to be, and your chapter has to be the one to take this initiative. They also have turnover, so they're not going to, your one chapter is not going to be the one organization out of the many that they will reach back out to and say, hey, just letting everyone know, out of the 30, 40, hundreds of people who volunteer, we changed outreach coordinators or something along those lines. So really a lack in communication can really hinder this process. For us, they changed their outreach coordinator one semester. We were unaware, and it made that contact so much more difficult, especially since the previous person who tried to transition the community service director also didn't know this was happening. So the best thing really to do, and excluding all of these issues, is it's all about the planning. For fall, you need to start planning in the summer. You need to start calling when school ends. In the spring, you need to start calling as soon as spring semester, as soon as December hits, you need to start calling and trying to organize these dates and schedule yourself. So I personally, and I mean, I understand that everything is on chapter spot now. At the time of when I was community service director and executive vice president, I found it extremely helpful to use planning guides, and I know that it has been linked as a handout planning guide, but it was extremely helpful to use planning guides because I was able to outline lesson plans, I was able to put dates, times, all of these things, and then turn it into my executive board member and say, this is my plan, this is what's going to happen. When it happens, follow it up and say, this is what I need to change next time, which I think is one of the key areas of our ways, because we don't ever look back and say, this is what I need to improve on. So as with anything, a relationship takes time, and we're still working on it. It's a work in progress at all times, and how to create a strong one. It's assumed or expected the relationship with Miami Rescue Mission that we already had it over the 3 years that I started the program, but it takes time, and it's always going to be a work in progress. So I guess the thing that I like to say is that. So now that we discussed that relationship between you and the organization, building service relationships in your chapter. So starting a program like this is something that you can do. I think it's something that any organization really on your campus can do, because you can bring your talents anywhere. So the importance is finding what your chapter can truly give, so your talents. The answer could be anything from music lessons to speeches, dance, whatever. So our idea came from that thought. Talents that we had, we would give. And as a business fraternity, what can we give? Professionalism. It's also important to foster a relationship with an organization. So in our previous slide, we just talked about how the relationship is hard, but it's something that you have to continuously work on. So giving back to the community is so much more worth it when you foster that relationship. And then when looking for who to partner with, think of your chapter. So really, when you're building this service relationship in your chapter, you want to think of what they want to do. Our chapter, when we failed in this aspect, so when we started, service became a little less important or a little less passionate, we noticed that a lot of our members were volunteering with the business school to tutor and mentor teens, and this was through the business school. So obviously they really liked the business portion, they liked being connected to the business school, but maybe that wasn't their audience that they wanted. We were given this group of men to work with, and that's what we dealt with, but maybe we should have assessed the chapter and said, hey, chapter, do you want to work with teens? Do you want to work with women? Do you want to work with men? Where do you want to go with this? And then go from there. And so really there's no wrong ways to go about finding what you want to do and who you want to partner with, but a good way to get information. And this is one of the key things, especially if you want to start this where you are, is working with members of the service and leadership department in your student affairs area. So different schools may call it different things. There should be a student affairs department, division of student affairs, and under that there should be someone, I say should because not all schools are hierarchied or organized the same way. There should be a person in a service or leadership development role, and it'll be either them or maybe someone under them who is in charge of outreach to the community. And so this person will have lists. This person will understand that students are trying to go somewhere. And the reason this is important is because some organizations have forms and you want to know that they're reliable. So going through your school is really the best option on finding someone that's reliable, someone that you can trust, and someone that is a safe bet to work with. And so this is the easiest place to find it, and you can connect them in various ways. You can go find them. I don't know how many different people there are on your campus. If you do not have an outreach coordinator, find what area you would like to target. Decide if you want to target men, women, adults, children, schools, shelters, missions. As I stated before, really find that target audience to keep your chapter involved, because even if you don't have a coordinator and maybe your school is a little smaller or that's just not a priority on your campus, you can do this yourself. You can go into the community, you can go online, look up different areas to volunteer at that welcome volunteers, because not all institutions or organizations, nonprofits welcome volunteers. You need to make sure that you're welcomed and they're looking for the type of thing that you're trying to give to them. After you've found your target audience, you need to reach out to one organization. I did want to expand this and make it large, but really since that relationship part and communication is so hard, especially year to year, you really want to limit it to one organization that fits your goal. After reaching out, explain that you want to foster a continuing relationship. Say, this isn't a one-time, we're done. You want to continue and foster this and keep going and help all of these people. And make sure that you let them know that you want this to happen year to year. You want this to be a program that you're known for and they're known for. And you'll, after reaching out, explain that you will teach those parts of their program for professional skills for free. So they may be having a speaker come in, they may be having all this. So not only do you want to continue this relationship and have it be extremely positive, but maybe they're paying someone to do this. Maybe you can think out of the box and have them come to campus instead of doing all of these things that cost them money. Maybe you can save them some money. So thinking of those creative ways really help with the whole making sure you're building relationships in your chapter, because what happens is the service relationship of your chapter depends on how interested they are and how much they're appreciated from the partnership that you're getting. So most people are open to new ideas, but remember, first impressions are everything. So it is important to come prepared with a well-planned lesson for the workshop and provide them with an idea of what you want to do. Don't just call them and say, hey, I just want to volunteer, because they're just going to give you maybe they'll give you a sheet, maybe they'll just give you a contact and say, these are the days we volunteer. You want to say, this is what we want to do, this is our plan. And from there, you can work together and develop a strong relationship between the organizations. So some takeaways that we have, a little recap. Service is important. Everyone has something to contribute. And definitely does not have to be picking up trash. So your lessons can truly come from anywhere. So we worked with men who were deserving of second chances, and while we were teaching them professional skills, they taught us personal life lessons that we would have never learned if we hadn't have been in these situations. Like I said, college students don't get to have these personal interactions with people in different life paths and backgrounds than they are at all times. So their hard work also showed me that people deserve second chances, especially our brothers. Whether or not you've made a service a priority in the past, it's not too late to start making it. and involve brothers who may not have been as interested in the past. So really, when you're talking about second chances and involving brothers, and this, very similar to what I stated before, really goes into your professional career, your chapter experience. So what happens, you realize that these men are working from the bottom. They are trying to prove themselves. Your brothers, when they make mistakes, when you make mistakes in the workplace, you're trying to prove yourself. You're working from the bottom. Everyone truly does deserve second chances, and this is the reason that it is necessary for every chapter to make priority of service. It's not something that should be pushed to the wayside. It's not something that should be ignored at all. So it's never too late to start. I had this idea as a sophomore, and I thought, you know, we weren't doing anything like it. No one on campus was, and I wanted to give back in a different way. And so you talk about everyone has something to contribute. Brothers are overflowing. This has been definitely a continuing theme of this talk right now, overflowing with untapped talent. So use their skills and interests to create programs. I believe we had one brother who was a music business major, and there was a man who was interested in in producing music. And she had said, well, I mean, I'm in this business journey, I'm into music business, maybe I'll come and bring you some things next time about schools of music, community college, how you can get some time with different musicians, who to talk to. And so those skills really help. I mean, I'm not a music business person, but she was able to help someone else who was very interested in that. So you use their skills and to create this interest in the program. They'll be happy and interested in giving back. When you get to give something about yourself, it's like that famous interview tip we always get. Ask questions during your interview because everyone likes to talk about themselves. So when you're actually invested and you get to give back what you're good at, that makes you happy. It's like talking about yourself. You're giving back what you are personally good at. So it can be fun, easy to do. So it doesn't have, so like I said, it doesn't have to be picking up trash or cleaning the beach. This is something fun and easy. All you need is really one passionate person to organize it, and then everyone just gets to come along with it. It's easy to let it fall to the wayside, but you should really not let it.
Great job, Candace. Thanks for that. That was really a lot of really great information. And that is going to wrap up the content portion of the program for today. But now we want to hear from all of you guys listening in, and so the program is going to be open to your questions and comments. As stated earlier, feel free to submit them via the questions box or on Twitter with the hashtag AKSciChat. Questions are going to be answered in the order they're received, and please be sure to introduce yourself with either your chapter or your college or university before you ask your question. So the first question we're going to start with is, you mentioned Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, but what are some examples of other lessons that you guys planned and prepared?
So we also did an interviewing. So we decided that we would have students inside and discussing different skills. I believe that we talked about, we went back and asked them what they were interested in, and we came back and said some people are interested in entrepreneurship, some people are interested in music business, some people are interested in engineering, architecture, that kind of area. And so we divided up into 3 groups, and we had them discussing, brothers, even if they weren't well knowledgeable on these specific topics, go back, research them, and the brothers that returned the next time we went, had them in those 3 groups, discuss those things, and during the entire hour and a half that we were there, we pulled the men one by one outside, and we had about 3 or 4 brothers sitting in chairs and did a mock interview. I mean, it wasn't extremely intense, and sometimes it ended up in being, let me talk about our lives, because that's what they needed. But we were able to say, hey, this is really how you should come into an interview, or hey, this is, even though you don't have enough work experience, this is how you can turn it around and get a positive out of it. So I really think that that was one of the more beneficial ones that they had, because they were able to get a little bit out of everything, and there was never a dull moment happening.
Great, that's really good. The next question we have comes from Lauren at the University of Denver. She wants to know, what is the best way to choose a philanthropy that appeals to the entire chapter if we really want to make it a continued relationship?
So like I said, I think that target group is really important. I think that learning about the organization that you're working with is really important. At the time that I'd started, we had a lot of men that were excited about it. We had a lot of men on e-board, and we had a lot of past presidents. And so a lot of people, and it wasn't just the men thing, I think. It was just people were just excited about service, and no one really cared what our target audience was. But then later on, you found out that they liked the ease of being on campus, and maybe they would have liked to teach teams and different things like that. So I think, one, that target audience is important for them, but also getting the chapter involved in that lesson planning part. Having them involved in planning what you're actually doing becomes extremely vital because it makes them feel like they're appreciated. It makes them realize that obviously, even if you are the service director or whoever you have in charge of this, that is not the person that deserves all the credit. They get credit for every bit of it. They get credit for any part of it, and the whole bringing them back to the chapter and talking. So if you remember at the beginning, I discussed, I didn't stand up and say, here's our community service sign up that we're doing this week. This is when we're going to go. Sign up if you can. I said, I'm passing around our sign up sheet. It already had the information on it, and that's all I said. And I said, these are the brothers that have gone. They're going to come and tell you what the experience was. And so you had brothers say, it was amazing, it was great, it was extremely impactful. I've never experienced something like that. And then we've also had some brothers who are alumni who've experienced this come back and tell pledges, new brothers say, wow, well, this was something that I've said in my interviews. I've told them when they ask me, what's something that you can't, that's not on your resume that I can't just read? And they said, well, I did this, I did some community service, and it was a life-changing experience, and I've never done service like that before. And they explain what they did and how they taught professional skills, how they gained insight on people. And those were some things that, if you're trying to keep that continuity in your chapter and keep your chapter interested, I mean, we're all in a business fraternity. We're all trying to better ourselves professionally and get where we need to go. I think that was the turning point for some brothers. They said, wow, this isn't just service. This is, I can put this on my resume. This isn't just some la-di-da thing. So I think all of those steps are extremely important.
Good, it's really helpful. The next question we have is going to come from the University of Minnesota, and they want to know, how do you go about maximizing your budget or coming up with a decent budget that's dedicated to community service?
So my budget was zero, which was obviously really easy to deal with. And I guess if you wanted to, we could have reimbursed people for driving, but the drive wasn't that bad, so there was no need. No one really asked about it. And the reason the budget was zero is because you are bringing your skills from your chapter. So we brought our own laptops. We made sure they were charged. We brought our chargers just in case they died. We sat there and used, we looked up different templates, and one time we came in and we had different, applications that they would have for maybe entry-level jobs that we knew were feasible for them. And so we already had those printed, and printing for us was free on our campus. So things like that, our budget was absolutely zero. There was no need for us all we had to do was drive there and give them our time. And then when it came to, we did 2 drives every year, or we tried to. So the first year we did it, we did a hygiene drive in the spring, so it was ending like when summer hit, and then we did a clothing drive that I talked about in the fall. And so what happened was, the only thing we really paid for that were boxes to put around campus. And then the clothing drive, we just set up a donation link, passed it around, and had brothers donate expired or unused suit pieces or any kind of professional attire that they had. So I think that this is extremely easy to do on a zero-based budgeting level, if I can say that. So yeah.
Great. So the next question is that most business students have never really created lesson plans before. They're not in education, haven't kind of learned that skill. So how would you recommend starting a process like this without having that prior knowledge?
So although my future career is in higher education and it sounds like I'm really into this and this is my life path forever, I was a public health major in undergrad. I was in AKSI was my thing where I was like, everyone needs business skills, so something that I thought I needed in life. And I did not know how to do lesson plans. I think the first time I may have just Googled it, but then really all I had to do was sit down and say, what do these people need? It's really not that difficult because all you have to say is maybe an introduction. I said, we're going to introduce ourselves. Got that. We should probably do that every time, especially one-on-one when we get to those one-on-one sessions and moments. And then after that I said, what should be the first thing we talk about? Bullet point, we're going to talk about networking. Sat down, like I said, wanted the input of the people who were going. We'd sit down the week of and we discuss lesson plan. And I said, you know what, we're going to talk about networking. Let me stand up there and speak before we start this whole shindig and discuss why all of this is important that we're going to give them. And I said, okay, there goes about 10-15 minutes of a lesson plan. And so it was really just working through it with other people. But if you just put bullet points down of everything you want to discuss, and don't put too much because you may go over and you may run out of time. So put bullet points of what you want to discuss, and then that also gives you time, if you don't put enough, to get to know the people you're working with, which I think was the most beneficial part for some people, and maybe all of us.
And you talked about this a little bit, but how can the chapters get the rest of their brotherhood to see the importance of service? A lot of our chapters focus a lot more on the professional side or brotherhood side. How can you get them to focus on that service piece?
So, like I said, if you don't have someone that's really passionate about it, you usually, service obviously does get pushed to the wayside. And I think that for us, having that alumni who came back and said, I use this in my interviews all the time, and say, it was a life-changing experience for me. I hope you guys are still doing this today. I feel like for some brothers, they're like, wow, maybe I should keep doing this, and maybe I should figure out how to do it in a beneficial way to myself. So I think that's the first part. But the second part is when you don't really give that priority to service, I think just trying to cultivate some excitement is difficult, but just getting that starter group, that's all you need. You need, can't remember it from all of our lovely management classes and things, but you need the innovators. You need the people who are going to click onto the idea first. So even if you take 4 or 5 of your closest friends within the chapter and you say, we're going to go do this and we're going to make sure that it works and it's going to be great, and then you go back and do that whole marketing piece of letting people stand up. And so when you're making it a priority, having that alumni come back and say it's so important, but if you don't have that, really just get your friends involved and make it a little more informal. Don't make it so this is what we have to do for our hours. Make it fun. The biggest thing I can say is make it fun for everyone and say, this is outside your obligation, but you could count it as your obligation if you want, and you can definitely put this on if professional skills are your only worry. This is how, give them a list of things that this is how it's proven to be a part of your interview. This is how you can put it on your resume, and this is what it's going to contribute to your professional skill set.
Great. The next question we have is from Monica from SMU, and she wants to know, can you just talk a little bit more about how involved the chapter should be in the decision of kind of picking the philanthropy or who you're going to partner with?
So I will say for us, because I had started it, I didn't really involve the chapter because I was on this lovely community service high, if I could say that. And I wish that I would have involved the chapter more. I was just like, I have this great service and we're going to do it. But I think that you can't really give them too many options. So like I said, either go to your service coordinator on your campus that works in your service and leadership office, or do all the research on your own. Narrow down some things, like if you say teens, women, men, mid-20s, like young adults, very similar to yourself, so maybe you have that immediate connection being young adults. Maybe have like 4 options and say, this is what these people are, this is what these people are, who do you want to work with? That's as really much as of a involvement I think they need to have with who they pick. And then after that, I would say very similar with the lesson plan. Say, this is what we want to talk about this time. Or I think the better thing to do is when you go in the first time, ask them what they want to talk about and have opening discussions, introductions. Don't put a lot of pressure to make a strict lesson plan the first time you go in. And then you have kind of an idea, what do these people or this population really want to get? Go back, make a lesson plan, sit down the week of or week before and say, these are the people who signed up, we're meeting this time. Is there any suggestions or changes you guys want to make to this lesson plan that we already have set? Mostly because obviously too many cooks in the kitchen is never really makes productivity happen. So you're going to have to make those executive decisions and then maybe let them choose between 3 or 4 options and make some suggestions for change. And I find that it gives enough involvement that they feel that it's appropriate and they are affirmed by it, but it also doesn't put a lot of pressure, because I also think that as brothers and college students, we're under a lot of pressure. No one wants to feel like you're planning this and you don't know what you're doing and they have to pick up your slack. So you have to find a happy medium, and I think that that's where that is.
Great. Now, we do only have a few minutes left of the webinar tonight, so if you do have any other questions, please go ahead and get them submitted. Next one we have is going to be, you talked about creating the guide to pass on to the next person that's in charge of this. What all did you really kind of include in that guide, and was there anything that you kind of wish you would have included?
So I wish that I would have included some things about continuity, mostly because of the issues, like I said, that we have, because I thought I could just kind of pass along that continuity by verbal discussions, but it's a little difficult. And I'm pretty sure everyone has those examples, but I really included kind of any of the lesson plans we said, anything that any of the brothers sent me that they researched, or at least I tried, and then I included the contact information and things like that of the person involved, which ended up being maybe not a negative, but ended up becoming an issue when they changed their coordinator or outreach coordinator because we didn't know that had changed. So definitely minimum contact information and a timeline when you should do things. Things that I wish, timeline that includes continuity, meaning this is when you should train, and continuity is important, and discussing why if you don't continue it, it will fall down.
Great. As we're not seeing any more questions come in, this is going to be the last question for the night. And that says, how have you personally stayed involved with this program once you were no longer kind of in charge of organizing it?
So for me, it was an easy transition because, like I said, our hierarchy was organized as the executive vice president was over community service director and risk management, and then we created a couple of other things for them to be involved in. But after community service director, I ran for executive vice president. And so I was able to kind of mentor the community service directors that were under me. And then after, I think after I no longer was the executive vice president, being able to just be a resource while on campus. People knew that I was involved in community service. People knew that I had done it. And being able to just tag along and give some advice whenever anyone could was really how I tried to be involved while no longer being in charge, and volunteering in the program as much as possible to lead by example, because you want to be able to let it go once you're done. You have to realize that it's not going to continue when you leave if you're the one that keeps doing it. So definitely just being here for advice, and then leading by example and continuing to go to the programs that were created after I left.
Great. Thanks, Candace. So that is going to be all the time that we have for today. I want to thank all of our participants and the callers for all of you guys' great questions and comments that really added to the conversation. For any additional follow-up or questions you may have, feel free to contact Candace with the information that's provided on the screen. Finally, we do have a lot of upcoming programs added on akpsi.org website, as well as supplemental materials and additional resources. As mentioned earlier, the handout of slides is attached to the webinar right now to download, as well as the Service to Community Planning Guide. Any additional planning guides, as well as the ACR, are going to be available to officers on chapter spot. And if you have any suggestions for future webinar or e-learning topics, please send them to education@akpsi.org. Again, I want to thank our presenters.